So, if I could talk to one business executive, one senior leader, one CEO, who would it be? Jack Walsh? Nope. Warren Buffett? Yeah, he's got all the money. No, not Warren. Larry Ellison, the CEO of Oracle? Nah. Well, how about Kai-Fu Lee? Big guy in China, right? Maybe he can help me see the insights of China. Nope, I don't want to see Kai-Fu Lee either. I want to talk to Peter Drucker, the godfather of management. Peter Drucker came up with the term knowledge worker in 1959 in his book, Landmark of Tomorrow. And a knowledge worker is basically somebody who creates or uses knowledge to create value or to make more knowledge move forward. And Peter Drucker had two interesting things about knowledge workers. One was that in the 21st century, the time we are in now, is that the knowledge worker is going to be the most important asset to organizations, in the knowledge worker and their productivity. Notice he said, and their productivity, because a knowledge worker without productivity is somebody surfing the web buying on Weibo. The other thing he said about the knowledge worker is that the knowledge worker will need the organizations more than the organization needs the knowledge worker. Is that true? Really? Think of it. We all want to get jobs. Why do we want to get jobs? Because the organizations have the cash. We don't have the cash. Most of us don't. So how can we need the organization more than they need us? I would disagree with him on that, and let me tell you why. Since the Great Recession, or whatever you want to call it, Europe has been in a disaster. Unemployment is actually higher now than it was in 2008. The numbers speak for themselves. And the US unemployment numbers don't get any better either. How is that? It's because the governments manage the economy to certain levels of growth. I started my career back in the 80s during the Reagan recessions. Inflation 12% or higher, unemployment high. Luckily, I had a good job. And throughout my career, the recessions came and came and came. Finding jobs got harder and harder. And where is China? Here you can see how the U.S. government manages the economic numbers. Never growth over 4.3%, 20 years or more. They're managing the money. China, we've all seen the headlines in today's news. Economy chilling, less jobs, people worried about the future. What are you going to do? How does China manage the economy? They appreciate or depreciate the renminbi. For the last 5 years, we've seen the renminbi go from 8.32 all the way down to 6. And then when the news hit that, things are getting bad, last month, the renminbi jumped from 6.01 to 6.22. Bad news for the employer. So let me tell you about how you can get ahead and how you can move forward in these turbulent times. First off, you have to have courage to continuously improve. You must improve all the time. After I finished school, I went out and got other associate's degree. I went out and got certificates, and I learned and learned and learned. I read books all the time to find out different trends. I even watched a TV show called The Nightly Business Report for 10 years straight, 30 minutes a day. Learning about how CEOs think, learning about how CEOs see the markets, learning about how CEOs see where things are going, learning about how the market trends are changing. I read a book called The Factory Girls by Leslie Chong. She was doing the story of 5 young girls that went from the west of China to Guangdong. And she talked about these girls. And there was this one gentleman in this book who talked about how he taught them English, but there were no tests. There were no grades. Their test was the real world. And that relates to me in some way as well, because when I came to China in 2003, I had no Chinese language skills. I was looking at people like, God, I'm in the dark here. What are they saying? Where am I going? What are they doing? Oh my God, and look at how they drive the cars. Holy cow. And the Chinese language teachers would say to me, Jerel, you've got to study the right stuff to pass the Chinese language test. And I'm like, I don't need any tests. And they say, Jerel, you're studying the wrong words. I'm like, I'm studying the right words. And after 2 years, with them continuing to give me a hard time about taking the test, I finally said to them, I don't need your test. Every day I go out and I buy vegetables. Every day I get my bicycle fixed. Every day I can get on the bus and I know where I'm going. I don't need a bicycle. I don't need a language test to tell me I can communicate. People tell me I can communicate. I hear them all the time. So that's how I know I have the ability to speak Chinese. No tests. Next thing I'd like to talk to you about is measuring. We all measure everything we do. Businesses are always talking about your KPI. Meet your KPI. Teachers are telling you, get your test scores higher. So you got to have insight into measuring the right things. You've got to see, what are you measuring? You have to see that you're getting ready to make the next jump. We measure how much we weigh. We measure how much money is in the bank account, or we can't get married because we don't have a house, or we don't have a car. So you've got to be continuously measuring that you're getting and moving in the right direction. You've got to be thinking about how you're doing it. Let me tell you a story about measuring. I moved to Shanghai in 2012, and I was talking to a young man, and he said to me, so Jerel, what's the difference between Nanjing and Shanghai? And I said to him, well, you see, there's a lot of events to go to, and I get to meet a lot of people, and I've actually given out 600 business cards in 5 months. And he went, what? You've given out 600 business cards in 5 months? I'm like, yeah, I meet people. And he goes, cannot you teach my sales team how to do that? And I'm like, sure, no problem. I can do that. Bam, a sale right there because of talking numbers. Next thing you need to see what other people are doing. What are they measuring? Because you never know if they're measuring your service, or they're measuring your ability to communicate with them, or they're measuring how well you engage them. Next comes the real hard one, creating value. Now, I can tell you that I've seen a lot of things create value. How many of you would like to have one of these things? This is the latest and greatest thing. You want it? Anybody know want it? Yeah? Well, actually, this is 20 years old. This is an Apple Newton. Came out in 1995. We thought it was real cool. 2 meg stick. Wow, 2 meg, huh? But actually, this is what Apple used to pioneer and then come up with the iPhone. So, Al Gore likes to say, hey, he created the internet, right? Well, actually, I built the internet. I was one of those guys pulling wire through the buildings, working with telecommunications people, installing Novell software. All the old people know what Novell software is, right? You young kids, you don't know what it is. You walk into a room, give me the password. I want to go on the wire. I want to start surfing. Us old guys, we had to pull wire. We had to connect them to the computers. We had to install software, and we had to teach people how to do it. And that's what I did. I taught people how to use the internet. And it was a lot of fun, and it was a lot of exciting things. So how do you become creating knowledge? Well, first off, you got to learn the market. Where is the market going? What's the next great thing? What's going to happen next? You got to feel it. You got to see it. What's the next great app after WeChat? WeChat's going to buy out Facebook. If Facebook can buy out WhatsApp for $19 billion, then you have to learn yourself. You have to go back into your continuous improvement and think about, okay, how do I get those skills? And then you close the market gap so that you have the skills that others want and others need, so that you become the knowledge worker that people want and desire. Next is planning. You've got to be planning all the time. If you're not planning and thinking about the future, and you're not planning about where the markets are going, you're going to get stuck in one place. And one day they're going to tap you on the shoulder and say, sorry, comfortable is over. Go home and don't come back. If you're not planning and seeing the next move, you can bet your bosses are. And you're going to be stuck on the outside looking in. So let me tell you a story about planning. In 2008, I was a corporate trainer in quit. I was supposed to get a job with a European company, and bam, came the economic crisis, and the CEO said, sorry, we're not coming to China. And I'm like, I don't have a job. Where's the money? You know the old saying, where's me the money? Show me the money. So I had an idea that I got after reading the book Blue Ocean Strategy. I decided I was going to create a new coaching business model in Nanjing. The first thing I needed to do was find a client. So I found a client, and we piloted the program, and from that program, we identified my unique value proposition and my value that I created for him. Thus, I could then go on and create a brand to match that value proposition. After getting the brand set up, I then registered the company. And after registering the company, I moved to Shanghai. If I hadn't done those steps, if I just said, well, I'm going to go to Shanghai and start a company, and knock on some HR's door or knock on some CEO's door and say, hey, I'm here to do corporate training. I'm an executive coach. They'd be like, you got a license? No. Well, what's your brand? Hey, how are you going to teach my employees what to do if you don't have these things figured out? So planning is critical. You must plan. Finally, you have to think about communication. In today's world, communication is more than just sitting around in the office talking and having a cup of coffee at Starbucks. It's more than selfies. Communication nowadays is YouTube, it's TED, it's being able to write. Last month, I had an article in the Shanghai Business Review. Here, I'm talking to you today in front of, for TED. I've talked all around the world. You have to have the ability to write and speak. You must master both those communication skills in the 21st century because social media is out there. You want your story going viral? You've got to get it on paper as well as visual. You've got to be able to do video. So you've got to communicate. You've got to be able to get to see what other people are feeling. When you're communicating, you can tell what other people want. You can hear what they need. You can offer value to them. In our waking life, 75% of the time, we're having communications. The real question is, are you listening and are we really understanding each other's needs? Because if we're not, then we're just blah, 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 blah. Last but not least is networking. You've got to be networking really well. There's all this social media, right? Now, this slide doesn't have my QR code, so you can't go scanning it. But, you know, we all walk around and go, ooh, shake. And we get our phone numbers. Oh, look, I got you on WeChat. Yay. And we all send emails out to people on LinkedIn saying, connect with me. And we don't even write their name. Hey, look, it's a default sentence. I don't need to write their name. That's not social. That's just spam. So you've got to learn to network, to give to people. You've got to learn to help others. You've got to help people find jobs. You've got to help organizations find talent. You've got to help people find leads. You've got to help them find the next value in the market. You've got to give and give and give because otherwise you're not going to get. You've got to give. You've got to know who is around you, what they need, what they want. And you've got to know it. And you've got to feel their passion and help them grow their passion. You've got to know who's in your network. So I'd like to tell you a story of how this all comes together. In 1988, I was in the bank, and I was a computer technician. And we were told in 18 months, the jobs were going to be outsourced. Luckily, I was improving. And there was a job in the funds management department called a business system analyst. And I went up to the person in the job and I said, hey, if you ever decide to change jobs, let me know. I want your job. And she looked at me and said, really? I'm like, yeah, this is a fun department to work. I want to work here. 2 months later, she moved to another department. And I said, oh, great. Can I have that job? And they said, sorry, we've hired somebody else. And I went, oh, bummer. But I want to work in that department. And so I talked to the new person, and he was from South Africa. And I said to him, when you have to go back to South Africa, let me know. I want your job. And sure enough, 6 months later, you know, United States, you get visa problems too. He had visa problems, and he had to go back to South Africa. So everybody in that department knew how good a service I delivered. Everybody knew that I created value for them. I communicated well with them. I always came up and gave them good plans on how to do their business. And my network was ready and able to go and to lobby for me to the senior manager of the funds management department to give me that job. And 6 weeks later, I had that job interview. You know how long that job interview took? 15 minutes. I was in his office while he was in New York City. And at the end of that 15-minute phone call, he said to me, Jerel, I'll call HR on Monday to process your promotion. So these things work. They can help you get to where you want to go. So work on them. Focus on them. And I promise you, you will be the knowledge worker organizations want, need, and will pay well for. Thank you.